Yes.
Okay, are both parties present and ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Rice, before we went on the record, you said there were some pretrial matters you wanted to talk about before we got into opening statements?
Yes, Your Honor. If I may, we'd like to make appearances to the court.
Sure.
Well, good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Caitlin Rice, and I'll be the prosecution attorney today, and I'm here along with my co-counsel, Tristan Harth. He will be helping me with some of the digital technology behind the scenes. Next, we'd like to ask that witnesses be constructively sequestered, except for the defendant, pursuant to Rule 615.
Okay. Mr. Ha, do you have any objection to the constructive sequestration of the witnesses?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right. They are sequestered constructively. What else?
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, at this time, I'd like to draw the court's attention to stipulations 7 and 12. First, starting with 7, exhibits 4 through 33 are pre-admitted and may be used at any time for any purpose.
Okay. The only thing well, first off, Mr. Ha, is that your understanding of that stipulation?
Yes, Your Honor, it is.
Okay. The only thing I'll tell you guys is, to the extent that you're gonna refer to something that's pre-admitted and obviously display it on the screen, just tell me that it's a pre-admitted exhibit. Just say displaying pre-admitted exhibit, whatever. Give me an indication that this is a pre-admitted exhibit, and you don't have to wait for me to respond and say, okay, just tell me it's pre-admitted and you can proceed with what you want to do. Does that make sense?
Of course, Your Honor.
All right.
Your Honor.
And your second stipulation that you wanted to talk about?
Yes, Your Honor. We also would like to draw your attention to stipulation 12. On August 18th, 2018, the Leon County and the state of Florida declared Don Clark deceased.
All right. Is that your understanding of that stipulation, Mr. Ha?
Yes, Your Honor, it is.
Got it. Okay. Anything else?
Yes, Your Honor. We just ask that if you have any trouble seeing or hearing us throughout the trial, that you just make it aware so that we can stop and fix that before we continue.
I can see and hear you both fine, so I think we're okay for now, but to the extent that there's a problem, I will, of course, let you know.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. And with that, the prosecution is ready to proceed.
All right. Mr. Ha?
Your Honor, would you like the defense to make an appearance at this time?
Why not?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Calvin Ha, and I am defense counsel today. I'll be working with my co-counsel, Noah Ha, who will be my second chair and manning the technology in today's trial. We have no further pretrial matters.
All right. Before we get into opening statements, I'm just going to ask all of the scoring judges, our jury, to switch to speaker mode now, and I'm going to do the same. All right. Ms. Rice, whenever you're ready to make an opening statement.
If you could just give me 1 minute, Your Honor, I'm having some troubles with audio.
Okay.
Can you hear me, Your Honor?
I can hear you just fine. Yeah.
All right.
And if any of our scoring judges are having trouble hearing Ms. Rice, just message me and I'll relay that. But I think we're fine for now.
My apologies.
No problem. Whenever you're ready.
May I proceed?
Yes.
Thank you. May it please the court. To be the king, to be the queen, she had to kill the king. Cara Bassett likes to be known as the Elephant Queen. But what's a queen without wealth and power? The defendant didn't have either. She thought she'd found both when she married millionaire Don Clark. But she soon learned that Don kept tight control on his money and his business, no matter how much the defendant argued or threatened. Don was the king. So the defendant murdered Don Clark in order to take his throne. And in the middle of a hot August night, she slipped his body below the murky waters of an alligator-infested swamp. And Don was never seen again. When people asked where Dawn was, the defendant gave a lot of different answers. But you will see today that she never called his phone. She never texted members of the jury. She didn't call the police for over a week. See, that's why we've charged Kara Bassett with murder. And it's our burden to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Kara deliberately took her husband's life. First, we'll prove the defendant was angry at her husband. See, she wanted control of the elephant park that he owned. Eyewitnesses will tell you that when Dawn refused her demands, she argued and attacked him violently. Second, we'll prove the defendant had everything to gain from Dawn's death. The defendant made Dawn create a power of attorney document. Now, that document gave the defendant legal authority over all of Dawn's assets, worth over $8 million. And that was in the event of Dawn's death or disappearance. Members of the jury, I want you to pay special attention to that language. Disappearance. It's pretty unusual to have that language in a power of attorney document. And it was the defendant who insisted on it. Next, we'll prove that the defendant dumped Dawn's body into Big Gum Swamp. You'll see GPS records that prove the defendant drove the park's van to Big Gum Swamp on the night of the murder. You'll see forensic evidence that places Dawn Clark's body in the back of that van. You'll also see forensic evidence that places the defendant at the swamp. Unique algae from Big Gum Swamp was found on her boots and on the pedal of the van. Now, 2 months after Dawn's death, she turned Dawn's zoo into her sanctuary. And on the anniversary of the murder, the defendant married another man. She was now the queen. Members of the jury, she wanted the money, she wanted the power, and to be the elephant queen, she had to kill Dawn Clark. And that's why at the end of today's trial, I'm confident you'll find Kara Bassett guilty of murder. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Mr. Ha, do you wish to make an opening statement at this time?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
Yes.
Opposing counsel, members of the jury. What you just heard is a tall tale, one that's missing chapters. And the reason why, ladies and gentlemen, it's missing chapters is because the FBI never investigated some crucial leads. On August 18th of 2017, Mr. Don Clark received 2 text messages from an unlisted number in Costa Rica. Translated, those messages say, "Call me immediately." And for an hour on the day of his disappearance, that's exactly what Don Clark did. He placed an urgent call to a mysterious number in Costa Rica. Now, we don't know who Don Clark called or what they were talking about because the FBI didn't bother to find out. On the day of his disappearance, Don Clark also received a call and text message from his ex-wife, Lisa Clark. Lisa Clark, who had threatened to wipe Don off the face of the earth, informed him that she was tired of trying to settle alimony proceedings in the courts and that she was ready to finish things. Yet the FBI never interviewed Ms. Clark. And to this day, no one knows where she was on the night that Don Clark disappeared. And even though just 2 weeks before he went missing, Don Clark said he was planning to go off the books and run away, the FBI never opened up that chapter of the story either. Members of the jury, today's case is a half-written story. It's full of loose ends and missing chapters, and at the end of the day, no one really knows what happened on August 18th of 2017. Today, the prosecution bears the burden of proof. They must show beyond a reasonable doubt that Kara Bassett is guilty of murder. That means they have to prove all of the facts. And if at the end of today's trial you have any lingering questions, you must answer them in favor of the defense. Kara Bassett has nothing to prove. The burden is entirely on the prosecution. They will fail to meet this burden because with today's half-written story, they can't prove the two aspects of a murder. Instead, their case is full of missing chapters. First, it's missing the chapter on whether Dawn Clark even died. Today, the prosecution will show you no evidence that Dawn Clark, at this very moment, is dead. They don't even have his body. Second, the prosecution is missing the chapter on the identity of Dawn Clark's would-be killer. The FBI never interviewed a number of suspects, like Dawn's angry ex-wife and the mysterious caller in Costa Rica. Members of the jury, today's case is a half-written story. It's full of loose ends and missing chapters, all because the FBI never investigated some crucial leads. They never opened the chapter in the story about Dawn's angry ex-wife. They never opened the chapter about Dawn's urgent call to Costa Rica. And they never opened the chapter on whether Dawn Clark simply ran away. For all we know, at this very moment, Dawn Clark could be out there in Costa Rica, sitting on a beach and reading a newspaper. Look, the prosecution can tell you the same tall tale all day, but it's missing chapters. For that reason, you must find Kara Bassett innocent. Thank you.
Okay. Before we proceed with the evidence, I'm going to ask all of our scoring judges, our jury, to switch now to gallery view so you can better see the witness and the advocates as the testimony and evidence are being presented. So I'm going to go ahead and do that myself now. Ms. Rice, are you ready to call your first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, the prosecution calls Agent Branham to the stand.
All right.
Before I proceed, can everybody hear and see me okay? How about you, Agent Branham?
Yes, ma'am, I can see you.
Thank you. May I proceed at this time?
Yes.
Thank you. Please introduce yourself to the court.
Good afternoon. My name is Steph Branham, and I'm a special agent for the FBI.
Now, how long have you worked for the FBI?
Well, going on 18 years, ma'am.
What's your connection to this particular case?
I was the lead investigator into the disappearance of the 37-year-old Dawn Clark. I led a team of FBI agents as well as a local task force.
Your Honor, at this time I will be sharing a PowerPoint to aid the jury. All evidence included in this PowerPoint is pre-admitted.
Any objection, Mr. Ha?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. You may display it.
Okay, so Agent, when was Dawn Clark first reported missing?
On August 25th, Mr. Clark was reported missing, and that's when my team and I came to the Greater Tallahassee Elephant Park to investigate further.
Now, when did, to your knowledge, did Dawn first go missing?
His wife, Kara Bassett, explained he had gone missing on August 19th.
Now, how much time is between those two dates, Agent?
That looks to be about 8 days.
And to your knowledge, did the defendant ever try to contact her husband during that time?
No, ma'am. In the FBI's entire thorough investigation, we didn't find evidence that Ms. Bassett attempted to contact her husband.
How did you come to that conclusion?
We looked at phone records as well as other investigations.
Okay, so moving on from this, when did withdrawn. What did Miss Bassett tell you about the last time she saw her husband?
On August 25th, she mentioned that a vehicle was missing from the park. It was a Chevrolet van belonging to Dawn Clark.
Did you ever find that van?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Bassett mentioned she had seen this van at the Carrie Bell Leon Airport around 5 miles from the premises.
Now, were you ever able to determine how the van got there?
Yes, ma'am. In the vehicle, there's a GPS that logs the activity of the van whenever it's driven. It doesn't need to be turned on, and anywhere the van goes, the GPS tracks it.
All right, I'm going to put those GPS records up so that we can walk through this story. And this is from Exhibit 31 and is already in evidence. All right, so let's start from the beginning. When did this van leave the Elephant Park?
Well, ma'am, you can see that the van was originally at the Greater Tallahassee Elephant Park. At around 11:17 p.m., it made its departure to Big Gum Swamp.
And how long was the van in motion for?
It was in motion for around 139 miles.
And where did this van go, to your knowledge?
As I just stated, it ended up at Big Gum Swamp
What time did it arrive there?
at approximately 1:26 a.m.
And how long was the van parked at this location?
It was parked from the time it arrived to 2:10 a.m. on August 19th.
Okay, so what happened next, Agent?
Well, you can see that the van took a direction from Big Gum Swamp back to Carrie Bell Leon Airport, which is approximately 5 miles from the Clark's residence.
Okay, so what time did the van arrive at the airport?
It arrived at around 4:26 a.m.
And you just said that was about 5 miles from the park. Did the van go anywhere else that night to your knowledge?
No, ma'am. The van was stationary at the Carrie Bell Leon Airport until we found it on August 25th.
All right, thank you, Agent. So I want to move back to Big Gum Swamp. What, if any, investigation did you do of this area?
Well, ma'am, Big Gum Swamp is actually where my team and I believe the body of Don Clark is. So we canvassed the entire area and brought in trained search dogs given the scent of Don Clark.
What, if any, did you ever find Don Clark's body?
No, ma'am. Unfortunately, the waters in Big Gum Swamp are extremely murky and have a lot of wildlife. It would essentially be like finding a needle in a haystack.
All right, ma'am, so I want to talk about forensic testing. Are you aware of any of that happening at the Big Gum Swamp?
Yes, ma'am. It's standard protocol to have forensics sent to the lab. And in this particular case, I sent samples of algae from Big Gum Swamp to examiner Jules Greaves.
So was this algae significant to your investigation?
Yes, ma'am. It was actually this algae that connected several other items to Big Gum Swamp.
And what were those items?
Don Clark Chevrolet, a pair of Cara Bassett's boots, and a wheelchair belonging to the Greater Tallahassee Elephant Park.
Okay, I want us to talk about a little bit more, what, if any, other forensic testing was done regarding this case?
Ma'am, that van was completely looked through for any forensics that we could find, and we uncovered pieces of Don Clark's hair. Upon further forensic, the DNA linked Don Clark to these pieces of hair.
Ma'am, this is Don Clark's van. Is it not unusual to find hair in your own van?
Objection, Your Honor.
Basis?
Leading question. She said, "Isn't this true?"
Well, if I may be heard, Your Honor, I submit I am not trying to lead the witness on how to answer this question. I'm just asking for the witness to clarify for the jury why finding hair in this van would be significant to this case.
So I think I'm not sure that what Mr. Ha thinks the question was actually the question, but I'm not sure. So why don't we just have you re-ask the question, Mr. Ha, if you still think it's leading, re-raise the objection, but I suspect we're all going to be on the same page once you re-ask it. So overruled for now.
Of
Yes.
course. So, Agent, was finding this hair significant to the investigation? It is his truck.
Ma'am, it wasn't the fact that we found hair. It was the location where we found the hair, in the trunk of the vehicle. It wouldn't link with Don Clark's day-to-day activity of using the van.
Okay, so I want to move on from the van and move back to the Elephant Park. Did you find anything significant there?
Yes, ma'am. At the Elephant Park, there's a medical facility on the premises in which we found a lethal narcotic, carfentanil.
And did you discover how this lethal narcotic is tracked at the Elephant Park?
Yes, ma'am. Carfentanil is a Schedule II narcotic, which indicates it has to be logged every time it's used. The park kept a detailed book of its usage.
Okay, so is this the drug that you were referring to, carfentanil, to your knowledge?
Yes, ma'am. This is a 10 milligram syringe of carfentanil.
And is this the logbook that you were referring to?
Yes, ma'am. It is a page of the logbook.
Now, how did you use this logbook to aid your investigation?
On the last line of the logbook, as detailed of August 1st, 2017, it mentions that there were 24 syringes missing. It also mentions that Miss Bassett was the administrator of those syringes. But when my team got to the park, there were only 23 syringes. One was missing.
All right, thank you, Agent. Now I want to move on and I want to talk about Don and Kara's relationship. Did you do any investigation into that?
Of course, ma'am. I conducted thorough interviews and I was able to uncover a little bit more about the dynamic of Kara and Dawn's relationship.
And what did you find?
I found evidence that Ms. Bassett and Mr. Clark had gotten in a couple of arguments about the Elephant Park.
Okay, so just to be clear, before Don disappeared, who owned the Elephant Park?
Mr. Clark was the main financer of the Greater Tallahassee Elephant Park, as well as the owner.
Thank you. Mr. Harth, at this time, would you mind putting Exhibit 15 up? And Your Honor, this is already pre-admitted. Thank you. Agent, are you familiar with this document?
Yes, this document was in fact crucial in coming to my conclusions in today's case.
How is it crucial?
Well, this specific power of attorney granted Ms. Bassett the power over Don Clark's assets in the rare case if he were to go missing.
And I think we got a note in the chat that says time's up. And so,
Oh, thank you, Your Honor. As soon as the witness is done explaining her answer, I believe she is. I have no further questions at this time.
I think she was finished. Am I
Were you
correct?
done, Agent?
Yes, ma'am, I was finished.
Okay.
Well, there's no further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Cross?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
Yes.
Good afternoon, Agent Branham. My name is Calvin Hutt, and I'll be asking you some questions today.
Good afternoon, Mr. Hutt.
Can you see and hear me all right, Agent Branham?
Yes.
Fantastic. Now, Agent Branham, let's cut to the chase. You don't have Don Clark's body in your possession, correct?
Well, sir, it would be weird if I had it in my possession. But if you mean the FBI, no, the FBI does not have Don Clark's body.
And seeing as the FBI doesn't have Don Clark's body, I'm guessing the FBI doesn't have an autopsy report either, right?
And no, sir, you cannot conduct an autopsy if you don't have the body.
Certainly. And you don't have any security footage of Don Clark's death, right?
Excuse me, sir, I'm not sure I understand your question.
Agent Branham, you don't have any security footage showing Don Clark's dead body or him being murdered, right?
And no, sir, that would make my job a lot easier.
And you don't have any eyewitnesses to those events either, correct?
Again, sir, my job would have been much easier then.
Now, as for this suspected murder weapon you mentioned, the syringe of carfentanil, that's missing, isn't it?
Yes, sir. My team was only able to recover 23 syringes when there should have been 24.
And you don't have any security footage showing Kara Bassett with that syringe, right?
And no, sir, I don't.
And you don't have any eyewitnesses who saw Kara Bassett with the syringe, right?
No, but Ms. Bassett has been seen using the syringe to sedate animals before.
But not the missing one, right?
No, ma'am, no one has seen that.
And seeing as the syringe is still missing, I'm guessing you don't have any fingerprints either to link Ms. Bassett to the syringe, right?
No, sir, I don't.
All right, Agent Branham, let's talk about some suspects now. During your investigation, you learned that Don Clark had an ex-wife Lisa Clark, right?
Yes, I did learn that Lisa and Dawn were married before.
And based on your interviews, you learned that Lisa Clark had a reputation for cursing Dawn out, right?
I'm not sure if
Objection,
it,
Your Honor, improper character evidence.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Yes.
Per the rules on character evidence, evidence of reputation is admissible. We're not using it to show propensity, but just reputation.
Can you remind me of the question? It was Don Clark had a reputation for, I forget what the exact language was.
Yes, Your Honor. The question was Lisa Clark had a reputation
Lisa
for
Clark.
Dawn Clark.
You were breaking up and maybe I talked over you. One more time, can you say that?
Oh, apologies, Your Honor. The question was Lisa Clark had a reputation for cursing out Dawn Clark, correct?
Okay. Ms. Rice, what's your response to Mr. Huh's contention that because it's evidence of Lisa Clark's reputation for these kinds of actions, it's admissible?
Yes, Your Honor, I submit that Lisa's reputation is not relevant to today's case. Reputation is only admissible for the defendant and the victim. And I submit that pursuant to 404B, the defense is using a specific instance of conduct, cursing out Dawn, as they say, to show action in conformity therewith. The purpose is to prove propensity. Because Ms. Clark was aggressive towards Dawn Clark, that she would have harmed her on August 17th. And I submit that that is just not relevant.
Mr. Huh, one last chance to respond. What is your response to Ms. Rice's contention that you're offering this to show Lisa Clark's, a character trait of Lisa Clark, that she had a volatile relationship with her husband or ex-husband and was aggressive towards him previously? So it's more likely that she was aggressive towards him in this case. What's your response to her contention that you're using it that way?
Yes, Your Honor. We're not using this evidence in that manner. Instead, we're using it to show what Agent Brodham should have done, knowing the reputation, what sort of facts she should have looked for, not that Lisa Clark acted that way on August 18th.
Okay, this is a close call, but I'm going to allow the question, and I'm going to give the jury an instruction that they're only to consider this evidence to show Agent Brodham's lack of subsequent action and not for propensity evidence. So, well argued. I understand both of your points, but I'm going to overrule it and allow a questioning to proceed. So go ahead.
Yes, Your
Honor. Now, Agent Brodham, Lisa Clark had a reputation for cursing out Dawn Clark. Isn't that right?
I don't know how many people knew about this, but I did know about a couple instances in which she did this.
And Lisa Clark had a reputation for issuing threats like, "You're messing with the wrong person." Isn't that right?
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Yes.
The assertion here is you're messing with the wrong person. We're not trying to prove whether Kara Bassett was or wasn't messing with the wrong person. Again, we're using it for the effect it had or should have had in this case upon Agent Brodham.
Response?
Yes, Your Honor. I submit that opposing counsel is using this for the truth of the matter. They are using this in the attempt to show that Lisa Clark did say this and that she did have some sort of meaning to it in order to prove her guilt or possible involvement. And that is just not relevant and hearsay.
What's your response to the relevance piece, Mr. Huh?
Your Honor, this is an investigation into the disappearance of Dawn Clark. I believe knowing about alternative suspects who had motives to take out Dawn Clark and who had reputations for being threatening is certainly relevant with regards to the FBI's investigation.
Yeah.
If I may respond briefly,
Sure.
Your Honor?
Sure.
Well, I submit on those grounds, this goes to propensity once again. Using this statement as is using it not necessarily the truth of the matter, but the fact that it was said and that she meant it when she said it, making her a suspect in this case. That is propensity and that is not allowed. I'm
going to come out the same way here. I think to the extent that it's being used for lack of subsequent action on the part of the agent, I'm going to allow counsel to question the agent as to what she knew during her investigation and whether she took any steps to follow up with those alternative suspects based on that investigation or based on that information that she learned. And so overruled, but Ms. Rice, feel free to re-raise your objection to the extent that you think we're going beyond that narrow kind of scope of my ruling.
Yes, Your Honor.
Before I continue, in light of all the objections, could I ask the timekeepers to state how much time I have left for cross-examination?
Sure. And it says 3 minutes, 7 seconds in the chat.
Yes, Your Honor. Now, Agent Branham, let's take a look at Don Clark's phone records on the day of his disappearance. Mr. Ha, can you put Exhibit 21 on the screen? And Your Honors, this is a pre-admitted exhibit. I apologize, Agent Branham, the technology comes with some delay.
It's okay.
Now, Agent Branham, in the interim, it's my understanding that you received a digital copy of all exhibits before trial.
Yes, sir. If you would like me to pull up a physical copy, I can as well.
Yes, I'd like you to refer to Exhibit 21.
Yes, sir.
Now, in that exhibit, it says that Lisa Clark called and texted Don on the day he disappeared, right?
That is correct.
And yet, you never interviewed Lisa Clark, right?
No, I attempted to speak to Miss Clark, but she asserted her Fifth Amendment right and refused to talk to us.
Oh, so she didn't even cooperate with the FBI's investigation.
Yes, sir. She refused to cooperate.
And she has no alibi, right?
I don't have an alibi for Lisa Clark. That's not to say she doesn't have one. She just didn't give the FBI one.
So you're not aware of one?
No, sir. I'm not aware of an alibi.
Now, looking at this document, it also looks like Don Clark received 2 text messages from Costa Rica, right?
Yes, that is correct.
And those messages said, "Call me immediately," don't they?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
And they were followed by a 52-minute call from Don to that number, right?
Yes, sir.
And to this day, you don't know who Don Clark called, right?
No, sir, I don't.
And this person has no alibi.
I don't know if they have an alibi or not.
Thank you, Agent Branham. No further questions at this time.
Okay, thank you, Agent. You're excused. Ms. Rice, do you have any other evidence?
May I briefly redirect, Your Honor?
I'll have the timekeepers tell me something different, but my understanding was that you were out of time. Am I misunderstanding the?
Oh, was I out of time?
I
Let me
think
check
that's
the
what
chat really quickly.
I think that's what the timekeeper said. But if I'm misunderstanding the rules of this jurisdiction, someone will point that out.
Yes, Your Honor. It is, I see now that in the chat it says that my time is up. With that, the prosecution rests at this time.
Okay, Mr. Ha, are you ready to call your first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense calls Ms. Jo Young to the stand. May I proceed with direct examination?
Yes.
Good afternoon.
And Ms. Young, I think you're muted. Okay.
I unmuted myself, yes. Good afternoon.
Would you please introduce yourself to the members of the jury?
Hi, my name's Jo Young.
And what do you do for a living, Ms. Young?
I like to consider myself a veteran producer. I've dealt with a lot more crying women and roses than I'd like to admit.
And can you tell us about one of your more recent documentary films?
Yes, my most recent one was the Elephant Queen documentary.
And in filming this documentary, what sort of responsibilities did you have?
Well, Cara Bassett was the one that approached me about it, and she owned an elephant park with her husband. So I had to go to the elephant park about 5 days a week to film the elephants, the families visiting, Dawn, and lots of Cara.
And would you say you got to know Don and Cara well?
I would. I was with them 5 days a week.
How would you describe their relationship?
It was pretty normal. You know, your average couple, always loving, teasing each other.
And how was their relationship on August 18th of 2017?
Same as usual, normal Dawn and Cara.
Now, Ms. Young, I'd like to talk a bit about the last time you saw Don Clark. When was that?
I believe it was August 18th, 2017.
And did anything unusual happen when you last saw Don?
Actually, yes. I was with Don when he looked down at his phone and his face turned white as a ghost. He went to go make a call right after.
I see. Now, Ms. Young, let's take a look at Don Clark's phone records for the day of his disappearance. Mr. Ha, can you put Exhibit 21 on the screen? Now, Ms. Young, do you have a copy of all the exhibits that you received before today's trial?
I do.
I apologize for the technical difficulties.
Would you like to see if my second chair can assist you with that?
That would be much appreciated.
Mr. Harth, do you have access to that? What was it, Exhibit 21, opposing counsel?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I do.
Mind putting that up? Thank you so much.
21, you said?
Yes, sir. Now, Ms. Young, based on this document that we're about to see, who might Don Clark have been talking to when he placed the call?
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for speculation.
Response?
May I respond, Your Honor? I asked Ms. Young, according to the document, what it says. I'm not asking her to speculate.
Pardon me, Your Honor. I thought opposing counsel said, who do you think she's talking to? I must have misheard. The sound cut out for a second.
So I'm going to sustain the objection, and I'm going to ask you, counsel, to phrase your question in a way that allows the witness to testify to her personal knowledge, which obviously can only be based on her reading the document, not unless you can lay foundation that she knows otherwise. So sustained, and I'll ask you to rephrase the question.
Yes, Your Honor. Now, Ms. Young, at least according to what you can see on the document, who might Don Clark have been calling when he stepped away?
Well, I do remember being with Don around 6 that day, and it looks like there was an unlisted number he called.
And do you have any idea who that unlisted number might be?
It says unlisted.
Objection, Your Honor. I submit that this calls for the witness once again to speculate as to who this is.
Response?
Your Honor, as you will hear in a moment, my witness is actually not going to speculate. She's going to say that she has no idea who this mysterious person is.
Okay. Why don't you rephrase your question and ask her whether she knows who that person is, rather than, I think the question as phrased might have invited the witness to speculate. So overruled, but I'm going to ask you to rephrase the question in a way that is satisfactory to Ms. Rice's objection. So overruled.
Yes, Your Honor. Do you know who Don Clark who this caller was?
I have no idea, sir. It says unlisted.
I see. Now, looking at this document, the name Lisa Clark appears a number of times. Who is Lisa Clark?
I know Lisa as Don's ex-wife.
And how would you describe Lisa's relationship with Don?
Well, I did see Lisa come to the park a few times to speak with Don, more like yell at him.
And do you have any idea where Lisa Clark was on the night Don disappeared?
Once again, I have no idea.
I see. Now, we've talked a bit about before Don's disappearance and the day of Don's disappearance. Let's talk about things after Don's disappearance. After Don's disappearance, what did you see of the FBI investigation?
Well, I went to Mexico, but when I returned, I saw the FBI at the park. It seemed a little sloppy.
Objection, Your Honor. Improper opinion.
Explain.
Well, Your Honor, I submit this witness, no foundation has been laid as to this witness's knowledge of FBI investigations. So for her to say that the investigation was sloppy is an opinion of a lay witness.
Mr. Ha?
Your Honor, under Rule 701, they're entitled to share their opinions so long as they're rationally based and relevant to the testimony. Ms. Young has explained that it's rationally based because she was there, and it's relevant because this is a case about the investigation.
I'm going to sustain the objection. She can testify to what she saw, heard, or observed with her five senses, but she cannot characterize the investigation as sloppy or otherwise. So sustained.
Yes, Your Honor. Now, what did you see at the investigation, Ms. Young?
Well, first of all, the FBI barely asked me anything, and I saw one of their agents handling what looked like evidence without gloves.
I see. So in light of the FBI's investigation, did you do any investigating on your own?
I did. I actually dedicated an entire episode for my documentary to Don's disappearance. I went to Costa Rica.
And what did you find in Costa Rica?
Well, when I went to Don's vacation home, I found that there was no dust in the house, the fan was running, and Don's clothes were hanging in the closet.
So based on what you saw, what do you think happened on August 18th of 2017?
Objection, Your Honor. Improper calls for improper opinion.
Mr. Ha?
Your Honor, again, under Rule 701, lay witnesses are entitled to their opinions as long as they're rationally based and relevant to the case. In my question, I said based on what you saw, so that's rationally based, and it's relevant to today's case because today's case is about what happened to Dawn.
Okay, but
If I may respond, Your Honor?
sure.
Well, I submit that this opinion of this witness, any opinion this witness could give goes to the ultimate finding of today's case. It is not helpful to the jury or for telling her story. She is not an expert investigator and cannot give these sorts of opinions.
Mr. Ha, you asked the witness what she thinks happened that day. Is that right?
Your Honor, I asked based on what she saw, yes, what she thought happened on the day.
Okay, so I'm going to sustain the objection. At a minimum, I don't think there's any foundation laid as to how this witness would know what happened that day. And to the extent that you can lay that foundation, you're free to do so, but I don't think we've heard that, and I suspect we won't be able to. So sustained.
Yes, Your Honor. Now, Miss Young, when you went into Dawn's vacation home, what did you see?
Like I said, I saw Dawn's clothes hanging in the closet, no dust, and the fan was running.
Thank you, Miss Young. No further questions at this time.
Cross, Your Honor.
Proceed.
Good afternoon, Ms. Young. Just before I begin, can you see and hear me all right?
I can, ma'am.
Thank you. Now, I'd like to begin on that testimony you just ended on direct. When you went to Costa Rica, isn't it true that you didn't find any food or toiletries in that house?
That's correct.
And isn't it true that you watched that house for about a week and you didn't see anybody go in or out of there, did you?
I didn't.
Okay, thank you. So now let's move back to August 17th. Now you left the Elephant Park at around 6 p.m. Am I right?
I believe it was that time, yeah.
And you were leaving for vacation in Mexico that night, right?
I was.
And you weren't there the entire first week that Dawn was missing, right?
I didn't get back until August 26th.
So you can't tell us what the defendant was doing from the night of August 17th to the night of Dawn going missing, right?
Well, she was in the United States at the time and I was in Mexico, so no.
So just to be clear, you can't tell us anything about what happened that week from your own personal knowledge, right?
No, ma'am, I can't.
Okay, so you're pretty close to the defendant. That's a fair thing to say, right?
Well, we were at the Elephant Park 5 days a week, so yes.
And that was since 2015, right?
It was.
And she's been paying you $5,000 a month since that date? 2015?
Yes.
And $5,000 times 12 months is $60,000 a year, right?
I'm going to take your word for that, counselor.
And this documentary you're making, you will gain 20% of the profits from it, right?
I will.
And the documentary is called The Elephant Queen?
It is.
The defendant chose that name, right?
Well, it was an Elephant Park.
So she's the Elephant Queen?
Ma'am, I don't know. I would assume that's what she meant.
Okay. So Hugh Bassett came to work for the Clarks in February of 2017. Am I accurate with that?
That sounds right.
The defendant married Hugh Bassett, correct?
They were a pretty lively couple.
And she married Hugh Bassett on the anniversary of Dawn Clark's disappearance, right?
Objection, Your Honor.
Basis?
This testimony is more prejudicial than it is probative. When Cara Bassett married her new husband, doesn't prove where she was on the night of Dawn's disappearance or if she was involved in his murder. The opposing counsel is simply maligning my client based on her personality.
Okay. I think I understand the prejudice argument. Ms. Rice, what is the probative value of this question?
Well, Your Honor, this goes toward the motive of the defendant. She declared, if I may proffer, Your Honor?
Sure.
She declared John Clark dead exactly 1 year from his disappearance and then married Hugh Bassett that same day. I think that is we submit that is extremely probative as it goes to her motive as to why she might have killed Dawn Clark.
Okay. I don't think the prejudicial effect of this evidence or this line of questioning substantially outweighs the probative value. I see the link to motive, and so I'm going to allow the line of questioning to proceed. So overruled.
Yes,
Ms.
Your Honor.
Young, I'm going to ask that question again. So Kara married Hugh this exactly 365 days after Dawn disappeared, right?
It was August 18th.
And that's the same day she declared him dead?
I believe so.
Okay, so you observed the defendant arguing with Don Clark many times, right?
They fought over the elephants.
The defendant argued with Don Clark about the elephant park in general, right?
Yes,
She wanted to turn it into a sanctuary, right?
that's what she said.
And she would get angry because Don didn't agree, right?
I think that's why she got angry.
One time she got so angry she threw a vase at him. Am I correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Improper character testimony.
Okay,
If I may respond, Your Honor?
sure.
I submit that opposing counsel opened up to this line of questioning when Joe Young said that they were a loving couple on direct, and I am just impeaching on that.
Okay, response, Mr. Hutt, to that. The door was open on direct examination by this witness saying that they had a happy marriage.
Yes, Your Honor. On direct examination, that testimony was used to show that Kara Bassett had no motive. Here, the prosecution is using this testimony to show that on August 18th, Kara Bassett acted in line with previous behavior. It's showing a propensity.
If I may respond to that, Your Honor?
One more, and then I'll rule.
Well, I submit that this does not go to propensity. This goes to motive and intent. Well, it shows that Kara Bassett had a motive to be upset with Don and had intent to cause him harm based on that motive.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Hutt, you opened the door for this line of questioning, and even if you hadn't, I still think it's admissible as motive evidence. And so I'll instruct the jury that this isn't being offered to show your client's propensity for violence or aggression, but rather to show motive as it relates to the rocky nature of the relationship. So well argued on both sides, but overruled.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Young, I'm just going to repeat the question. It's true that she got so angry she threw a vase at his head one time, right?
She did, but luckily it missed.
But that happened just a few weeks before he disappeared, correct?
I think it was July or August of 2017.
So that's a yes to my question?
It is.
So the defendant would tell you to stop filming whenever she and Don argued, am I right?
Yeah, she did. I don't think she thought it was important.
Or she'd make you erase that footage, right?
That's correct.
Now I want to draw your attention to exhibits 36 and 37. These are film clips of the defendant from your documentary, correct?
Would you like me to pull them up, ma'am?
If you wouldn't mind.
I have them.
Now these are film clips of the defendant from your documentary, correct?
They look like it.
And you filmed these yourself?
I did, as the producer.
On June 15th, 2017. That's the right date, right?
That sounds right.
Do they appear to have been edited or changed since you last saw them?
I mean, they're just, the videos aren't played, but they look correct.
Okay, and they weren't scripted at the time they were filmed, right?
They weren't.
So just to be clear, the defendant is speaking on her own behalf in these videos?
It is an interview.
So that's a yes?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, may exhibits 36 and 37 be entered into evidence as an opposing party statement under 801D2?
Any objection, Mr. Hutt?
No, Your Honor.
So admitted.
Mr. Harth, would you please play exhibit 36 for the jury?
Ma'am, I can't hear the video.
But there is no sound, right? Just to be checking that. Sorry, we're having some brief technical difficulties. If you wouldn't mind giving me a minute. Mr. Harth, are you able to fix that issue at this time?
Not a charity. As long as it's my money, we'll run it that way. We'll see how this.
Were you able to hear that?
It cut out a few times, but I could hear bits and pieces of it.
Okay, Mr. Hurth, would you mind pulling up Exhibit 37 at this time?
Nothing.
If you don't mind, I'm going to try to share those from my computer. You might be able to hear a little bit better. If you'll just give me a brief moment to pull that up. I apologize for the issues. Your Honor, I ask, may the clock be stopped during this technical issue?
I'll admit that I'm not certain what the local rule is on that, and so my inclination is to not stop the clock for that unless you can point me to a local rule that says the clock stops for technical issues.
Of course. Once again, I apologize.
Not a problem.
If you'll forgive me for interjecting, I would just like to draw attention to the fact that while in the previous times where there has been technical difficulties during this trial, we have paused the time, me and the other timekeeper. So I would just like to draw the attention to the fact that that's what we've been doing openly for all the other ones.
Okay, I'm seeing in the chat that the timekeepers have agreed that they're pausing the time, and so obviously I have no control over what you guys are doing with the time, so I'll take your word for it. And if you guys agree on what the time is, that's what it is. I don't know otherwise. So it's like I said, my preference is to keep the clock running, but I can't control what you guys do with the time. So if you can point me to a local rule that kind of is on point on this issue, but otherwise, Ms. Rice, you're free to proceed when you are ready.
I appreciate it, and we'll pull it up just as soon as I find the folder from. Your Honor, I have it pulled up right now.
Okay.
Let the record reflect that this is Exhibit 36. I will begin screen sharing at this time. And let the record reflect that at this time I am pulling up Exhibit 37 and sharing my screen at this time. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, opposing counsel. At this time, I have no further questions.
Mr. Howard, do you have any redirect?
Not at this time, Your Honor, no.
Okay, Ms. Young, you're excused. Mr. Howard, do you have any other evidence?
No, Your Honor, the defense rests.
Okay. Before we proceed with closing arguments, I'm going to ask all the scoring judges now to switch back to speaker view, which I'll also do now. And Ms. Rice, whenever you're ready to proceed with your closing argument, you may.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court. When Don signed that power of attorney on May 1st, 2017, he signed his own death warrant. The defendant, his wife, now had everything she wanted within reach. All she had to do was make Don disappear. She would gain control of the money, the elephants, and the land. All she had to do to become the Elephant Queen was to kill the king. Today, it was our burden to prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty of murder. And today we met that burden. See, it is important to keep in mind today that our burden was not to prove the defendant's guilt beyond any doubt. It was to prove her guilt beyond any reasonable doubt. So let's take a look at the facts of today's case and try to think about them logically. Today, you saw a power of attorney document signed by Don Clark in May of 2017. And at the beginning of today's trial, I asked you to pay special attention to one particular word. And I want to draw the attention back to that word again. Disappearance. That is not typical language for a power of attorney document. Investigator Branham has been working for the FBI for over a decade. And this was the investigator's first time seeing this type of language used in a power of attorney document. Is it reasonable to believe this is just happenstance? Maybe at the time, but let's skip forward to August. The date is August 17th, 2017, and the timing is perfect. Joe Young, who you heard has worked at the park 5 days a week since 2015, will be going on vacation, leaving that night, and she will be gone for a week. The defendant waited until the park closed for that day and all the employees were gone. She took the syringe of elephant tranquilizer, crept up on Don while he was watching TV, and plunged it into him. A few drops, that was enough to kill him. Now she took his phone, sent a text message to herself, and then drove his body to Big Gum Swamp. You saw those GPS records today. The van went from the park to the swamp and then back to the airport. And you saw how specific algae from Big Gum Swamp was found on Kara's work boots, on a wheelchair from the park, and on the pedal of the van. Specific algae that connects it to Big Gum Swamp. Now it took 44 minutes for her to get rid of the body. She got back in the van, depositing more algae. And she drove back to the airport near the park. She waited 8 days to call the police to report him missing. Now the defense, they claim today that she attempted to look for her husband, but the thing is, anyone does that, what's the first thing that anybody does when looking for somebody? Nowadays, you just pick up your phone and call them. But you heard on Agent Branham's direct that that's not what Kara did. Kara didn't send any text messages, didn't call him for 8 days. Are those the actions of a worried wife? Is that reasonable? The defense asked today, where is Don's body? But members of the jury, you don't need special training to know what happened to that body in the summer, in the heat, in an alligator-filled swamp, The defense said that Clarks had a loving relationship. Screaming fights? Hurled vases? Does that sound loving to you? The defense said that we told a tall tale today. But the defense tried to claim that Don might still be alive someplace. That when Joe Young went to Costa Rica, the only trace of Don were some clothes hanging in a house. Is that proof? Is that a good alternate explanation? And Don is declared dead. We drew attention to that stipulation at the beginning of today's trial. And you know who declared him dead? The defendant. And you know when she declared him dead? On the anniversary of his disappearance, when she married a new man. She had $8 million, the park all to herself, and a new man. Kara, she was the queen. And she thinks that she got away with murder. But don't let her get away with murder, members of the jury. Find her guilty. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Mr. Ha,
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
you may.
Opposing counsel, members of the jury. The prosecution can tell you the same tall tale about kings and queens over and over again, but at the end of the day, it's still missing chapters. All because the FBI never investigated some crucial leads. Members of the jury, today the prosecution bears the burden of proof. They have to show beyond a reasonable doubt that Kara Bassett murdered her husband. That means they have to prove every single fact. And if you have any questions at the end of today's trial, you must answer them in favor of the defense. Members of the jury, Kara Bassett has nothing to prove. The burden is entirely on the prosecution. They failed to uphold this burden because today they haven't shown the two aspects of a murder. All they've shown is that their story is missing some important chapters. First, the prosecution's story is still missing the chapter on whether Dawn Clark even died. Today, they have the burden to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Kara Bassett murdered Dawn Clark, but they can't even prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Dawn Clark is dead. Ladies and gentlemen, we're at the end of the trial. You're almost free to go. And we've seen all the prosecution's evidence, heard from all their witnesses, heard all their testimony, and still we have no proof that Dawn Clark is dead. The prosecution has shown you no body, no autopsy report, no security footage, no eyewitnesses to Dawn Clark's death. Sure, a piece of paper at the county office says he's dead, but that doesn't mean he's dead. The prosecution has shown no proof that Dawn Clark is actually dead. Second, the prosecution's story is still missing the chapter on the identity of Dawn Clark's would-be killer. Today, you heard from the prosecution's own witness, Agent Steph Branham, who admitted on cross-examination that the prosecution's suspected murder weapon, the syringe of lethal poison, that's missing. They have no proof tying that syringe to Kara Bassett. They have no security footage, no eyewitnesses, no fingerprints to show that Kara Bassett even touched that syringe, let alone used it as a weapon. Agent Branham also admitted that the FBI never interviewed suspects. She admitted that the FBI never interviewed Lisa Clark, Dawn's angry ex-wife. Even though Lisa Clark had a reputation for cursing Dawn out, the FBI never interviewed her. And to this day, the FBI doesn't know where she was on the night of Dawn's disappearance. Agent Branham also admitted that the FBI never investigated Dawn's urgent call to a mysterious caller in Costa Rica. Today, Ms. Young told you that on the day he disappeared, Dawn Clark's face went sheet white. He was afraid when he saw 2 text messages saying, "Call me immediately." And after he saw those messages, he placed a call, an hour-long call, 10 times longer than any call he placed that day, and he placed it to a mysterious number in Costa Rica. We still don't know who that person was or where they were on the night of Dawn's disappearance, because the FBI never found out. Members of the jury, today's case is a half-written story. It's full of loose ends and missing chapters, all because the FBI never investigated some crucial leads. The FBI never opened up the chapter in this story about Dawn Clark's urgent call to a mysterious number in Costa Rica. They still haven't opened the chapter on Dawn's angry ex-wife, Lisa Clark, and they never opened the chapter on whether Dawn Clark ran away and went off the books. Prosecution has shown no proof that Dawn Clark is dead, and we still don't know the identity of Dawn's would-be killer. Members of the jury, Today, the life and livelihood of an innocent woman, Cara Bassett, is on the line. And all I'm asking you to do is to not ruin the life and livelihood of that innocent woman because of a half-written story. Look, the prosecution can tell you the same tall tale about kings and queens all day long, but at the end of the day, their story is missing some very important chapters. For that reason, ladies and gentlemen, you cannot find Cara Bassett anything but innocent. Thank you.
Rebuttal?
Yes, Your Honor. May it please the court. A tall tale. A tall tale is that of a man who hasn't been seen or heard from in 3 years. A tall tale is saying that he is still alive. A tall tale is claiming that he's living like a phantom in Costa Rica. A tall tale is blaming anyone other than Cara Bassett for that murder. Blaming mysterious villains from another country. Blaming evil stepmothers. She had everything to gain. Cara Bassett had everything to gain. $8 million. The elephants. A new man. All she had to do was get rid of her husband. We have met our burden. Find her guilty. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Before we go off the record, is there anything else that you guys would like to put on the record?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Ha?
No, Your Honor.
All right.